This video is going to show you a solo Nightfall getting platinum rank for the new themed strike from Lightfall, which is called Hypernet Current. For those who just want to see that and skip the timestamps, but other than that, I can show you the mods, etc. So we're going to focus on a solo legend first. I know people are going to say, well, why didn't you just do the master? Well, solo legend's pretty difficult compared to what the old solo legend used to be. So I figured I would start with that first because I know nothing, I didn't know much about this strike. And when you don't know something about an activity, do the easier difficulty first, and then build up from there with it. So I will do a solo master, but for the first run, we'll learn the enemy spawns, etc., and what champs and stuff like that. So the modifiers for legend are lock loadouts, extra shields. Your maximum level is 18, 15, so you're 15 power level under. We've got champions overload and unstoppable. Arc threat, so the enemies get a 25% increase to arc damage. Denials on. Overcharged weapons from the seasonal artifact. This is on always for Nightfalls. Solar Surge and Strand Surge. So those are the two burns. I don't know why they've changed all the verbs. It's so, honestly, it's such an annoyance. I prefer the old verbs to what we have now. And then overcharged GL. So remember, overcharged the overcharge mod and overcharge and surge don't stack together, which I forgot about that as well. That's another thing. So just bear that in mind when you're building your setup. So for the setup itself, we're on a Titan Shackle Suspend setup. So for that, we've got obviously Shackle Grenade on. We've got Rally Barricade, because that's a quicker cooldown as opposed to Tauren. You don't need Tauren, honestly. We've got aspects, the only two aspects that are available, so I don't need to cover those. Fragments wise, for the suspend build, you want these 3 essential fragments. These are best in slot, the ones I'm going to mention to you. Thread of Mind, Thread of Generation, Thread of Continuity. Thread of Continuity is going to make your Shackle Grade last longer. You're going to get Grenade Energy when you deal damage, right? So that's huge, that one. And then Thread of Mind, you get Class Ability Energy when you suspend targets. So it's going to give you that combat loop, right, with the shackle. And then lastly, I've got Thread of Binding. This is a fragment you can swap out for something else. It gives you plus 10 resilience, but it also gives you an extra perk for your super, the Suspend and Burst, which is really good. So I highly recommend it. But if you don't want to use it, use another one. There's a few, honestly, that really good. Thread of Isolation comes to mind. That's also a good one. So it's up to you. Like, there's no yes or no with that final fragment, but the other 3, they are essential. Weapons, we've got Witherhoard on, a solar bow and a solar machine gun to match the solar surge. We get that free. We don't need to build craft to that surge. It's giving you a surge for free, but you can put other surges on your boots if you were to not have matched the surge of the Nightfall. So we're using the exotic chestplate at Heart of Inmost Light. Obviously, we all know about this exotic and its ability uptime. Its ability uptime with Strand is really good because of the build crafting that you can do with Strand in itself. So it's still a good pick, and you'll see that in the run itself. So for the armor mods, I'll just quickly cover them. We've got Solar Siphon on, Ashes to Assets. Gauntlets has Solar Loader, Bolstering Detonation, Font of Vigor. Any font mods you put on, one of them at least will add 3 tiers to your build. So there's no point putting on Discipline 1 because I already have tier 10 Discipline, as you can see. So put a font on that you don't have tier 10 on. So I have tier 6 Strength. This will give me tier 9 Strength if I pick up an Orb of Power. Resistance, you want Arc Resistance on, obviously, and then a Void Resist, because there's a lot of Void in this that can cause you trouble, so make sure you got Void on. Charged up, we get an extra charge of armor charge when we pick up orbs. Kinetic Weapon Surge does not stack with overcharged weapons, which I forgot about that before doing the run, so I should have put on a Scavenger. I should have put on Kinetic Weapon Scavenger. So I messed up there with that, but I'm still getting used to the new systems in Lightfall. Recuperation, you gain health when you pick up an orb. Bomber, Special Finisher, and Empowered Finish. These 2 mods will help you out on Master with Famine, but on Legend you don't have to have them on. I could have put on Elemental Time Dilation on, which I did have that on before that, but I just thought I'd put that on just in case I was running out of ammo for Witherhoard, which didn't happen really, but on Master it would because of famine. So that's the build and everything and the mods. So from this run, what you're going to learn first and foremost is all the enemy spawns of Hypernet current, how to deal with the boss, how to deal with all the champions, and just the positioning and what works well in this particular strike, because it's completely brand new. Not many people have done content on this strike apart from bugs with the boss and stuff like this, but not many solos are up on YouTube because obviously people are still raiding, people are still getting their red borders, people are busy still with the expansion, because even though this expansion's been called to be lackluster, there's a ton of content in it. Just the only problem is the way that content's done is the way people have issues with it. But nonetheless, there's still a lot of content in it, and I know that because I've played quite a bit of it. Not as much as some people, but still quite a bit. So this start section, there's not much to it. There's some dogs, there's some enemies that you take out from a range, which you can do with the bow. So you can take this part at your leisure. There's nothing here, there's no champs. There's some champs coming up. Now I know it's legend, right? Now when's the last time I done a legend solo? A long time ago. I used to do them, I used to sort of speedrun them, like, God, it's got to be like 2 years ago or something. That's the last time I actually done a solo legend. It was always solo master and then solo GM. Never touched legend, barely, unless it was for like a pinnacle to get it done quickly. But now with the difficulty scaling, that what they've done with legend mode, they've pushed legend mode to a difficult-ish solo. It depends on which strike you're doing. This particular strike, I would rate this strike pretty tough, and it's going to be a tough GM. I think it's going to be tougher than Glassware. Do I think it's going to be as hard as Lightblade? No, I don't think so. I think it's going to be an easy clear for the expert players, for the solo GM on it. But for the average player, they're going to find it a tough solo for the GM, right? They're going to find it harder than Corrupted and stuff like this, I think. Now that I've seen everything, because I've actually done a master run and I've saw the champion spawns and what happens and what you can do. I haven't saw all the exploits. I know there's an exploit with the boss. The boss is coded weird as a red bar and also a boss, and there's all sorts of weird things. That means you can use certain weapons to leverage that. But like on a solo, you do need to put on some weapons, right? Now, obviously, we've got the Shackle Suspend build. We can stun all 3 types of champions, but not in the traditional sense. So I'm going to explain that when we encounter each champion. So we've got 2 unstoppables here. So Suspend does stun and unstoppable where you get the damage boost, because obviously unstoppable champions have 2 different health builds. They have unstun damage and stun damage. When you shackle a unstoppable, providing it's the first time you've shackled them, you will get that damage bonus. So it does what it says. But there are some instances in this strike where unstoppable champions do not get stunned properly. Buggy, maybe, I don't know, but it should. And also, when you've shackled an unstoppable, once the unstoppable is allowed to be stunned again, it should restun them. But again, there's some bugs going on, and sometimes it doesn't. But the bonus to it is, at the very least, if it doesn't come up with the text on the left-hand side to say you've stunned, at least the champ can't kill you because they're suspended. So it is the best build in the game, I think. The Shackles build for dealing with champions. It's better than freezing on Stasis. Although Stasis has actually got a buff since Lightfall because it deals with champions properly now, whereas it never did before. It dealt with barriers good, but other champs it didn't. Works well on other champs now. So Stasis is good. I'm not calling it too much, but I think Strand's better. Especially Titan-wise, because I love the super. I think the super's fantastic. One of the best Roman supers I've ever seen in the game. It's great. Shackle on barriers works also really good. It doesn't stun them, but it stops them from putting a barrier shield up. Pretty much the same as what a stasis nade would be when you freeze them. So it's also fantastic on barriers. So you've got a subclass here that has an ability to stun all 3 champions. With overloads it's different. What you've got to realise with the overloads is, yes, you'll suspend them, but you will not stun them. You won't stun them with the shackle grenade. So you need to, what I recommend is that you still have an overload weapon on when you're solo, so that you can stun them while they're suspended. You'll see that gameplay when it comes. Couple of turrets to take out from a range. Be careful of them. I haven't got solar resistance on, but it's not a problem. Just obviously take them with the bow. That's what makes the bow good in this. Long range weapons are good in this. So if you want to rock scouts, bows, really good. If you want to use kinetic tremors, I highly recommend kinetic tremors. I might make a video about it exclusively for kinetic tremors because I used it, and man, it's good. It's like it's like the new explosive payload to me. Really good. Just it only works on. Well, no, sorry, it doesn't. It works on everything, doesn't it? Sustained kinetic damage. Very good weapon. Is Nameless Midnight. I believe a pulse rifle gets it as well, but it's really good on the scout. These gladiators, be careful of them. Remember, I know it's only legend, but it's not the meaning of legend difficulty. You need to think about it differently. Legend mode is not what the old legend mode is. Legend is more akin, it's more closer to a GM difficulty mode than what the old legend mode was to Adept. The gap between legend and GM, I mean, it ain't a GM. Legend is definitely not GM difficulty, but it's definitely a huge step up in difficulty compared to what the old legend mode used to be. You used to be able to stomp everything, you'd run through a strike in 10 minutes, even solo. But to give you an idea on the difference, a legend strike is now harder than some old GM variants before Lightfall. Do you not think that's crazy? So let me just tell you, Legend Mars Nightfall is harder than most GMs from last season. That to me is a problem. The scaling of the game is a problem, which I'll talk as we go along because this is an important part. So this section here, there's no turn back zones before, right? So we can't stand anywhere too safe, but we have this cliff. This cliff is where you need to play from, and you will play from this cliff on higher difficulties as well, because once you kill enough of the Cabal, you will then have a Tormentor spawn. The Tormentor though is an ultra. The Tormentor isn't a standard Tormentor, it's classed as a boss, which is a problem because you can't shackle the Tormentor like you can on the campaign ones. This is a bit of a... You can shackle them, but they won't float in the air and all that stuff, which means you cannot super this Tormentor. You get an unstoppable champion as well on the first wave, and then when you get the Tormentor to half HP, you get another unstoppable. So that's just... There's just 2 unstoppables to worry about on this mod. We can deal with the unstoppable easy. If you can bait the unstoppable up top, that's great. But not always. It doesn't always happen. But there's a way of baiting, obviously, unstoppables up. So we need to focus the ads before the Tormentor, really, to be honest, because the Tormentor does do huge damage to you. That's why I've got Void Resist on, by the way, because of attacks like that. But also at the boss fight, there's lots of Void that comes at you. So you've got to know the attacks of these Tormentors. So he's got the swipe. Then he's got, when he puts like a Void Halo above his head, that's the best attack for you. Because when you're up on this cliff, those Void attacks aren't hitting you. It's the single strikes that you need to be aware of. I think you're a free hit at T10 Resilience with the Void Resist. You could probably go double Void Resist, honestly. I'm thinking you could probably do that, because I know the threats arc, but there ain't much arc. There ain't a lot of arc. Well, the Overload champs, yeah, but Overload champs can be controlled, whereas the Tormentor can be controlled, but is awkward. You need to obviously stun the Tormentor's crit spots, the shoulder pads on the left and right. Once you stun those two, your Witherhoard or whatever weapon you're using will actually start to do damage. So the entire body of the Tormentor is immune until you break those two shoulder pads. Once you do that, then your Witherhoard will start to do the damage. The crit will then be on the belly of the Tormentor, so you need to try and hit the crit, but it doesn't matter too much because obviously Witherhoard's going to do you damage. This Tormentor is really tanky. It's going to take you ages, this section. Obviously that's why you want to stand up here, because if you stand down there, the Tormentor is going to run up to you and suppress you and kill you. That's what's going to end up happening. So that's why you need to stand up here, and you will definitely need to stand up here on GM mode unless you are using an invisibility setup. You can super the Tormentor with range super, but you cannot use Roman supers because, as I said, because you can't shackle the this particular Tormentor in the traditional way. It's pointless you even going up to the boss and trying to super. And so that's where you just use your ranged attack. Unfortunately, that's the case, and it means the run's going to be slower because of it. And it's going to take ages. I can see it's probably going to annoy people in the fact of how tanky this particular Tormentor is. So weapons like Osteo, Lomonarch, and Witherhoard, those are your three good choices, I think, for this. Tycho's maybe because you've got Solar Surge. Yeah, not too bad. Well, actually, really good because they actually fixed it on Overload. So yeah, Tycho's is a good pick for this. But I went with Witherhoard because when you get to the final boss, you need a good weapon on the final boss, I feel. So Witherhoard done the job for that. So you can stand on the top of that rock as well and get some consistent Witherhoard shots. When the Tormentor enrages like that and he glows bright red, that's when you want to. That's when he tries to suppress you. So you'll do that move if you're in a 2 meter radius of the Tormentor, right? Which is why you can't Roman super. So if you're on a Warlock Strand or any range super, that's fine. But any close range stuff, it's no, you can't. You just can't do it. You'll be suppressed out of your super and then you'll end up dying, probably. So just don't do it, is the answer. You'll get another wave of ads, as I said, when the Tormentor gets to about half HP. So you need to focus the ads because they'll nade you, stuff like that. But this is how you basically deal with it. We need ammo. I should have went for an ammo run before this enemy spawn popped up. While nothing is much is going on, I can talk a little bit about the difficulty scaling of what they've done with Nightfalls. So what they've done, they've messed up. All right, they haven't achieved what I think they should have achieved with it, because they've wanted the difficulty of the game to be everywhere, and that to me isn't the right approach. Like I'm not talking about other things of the game. Let me just talk about the Nightfall activity itself. So previously we had GM difficulty, which was the penultimate difficulty, which people would wait for half of the season to start to play and then gild their seals. That was regarded as true endgame for people, and I know the GMs have got easier over time, but it was still the true endgame for people. So that's your mode. Masters were pointless before Lightfall. All right, they were not pointless, not entirely pointless. They had a place for the first half of the season when GMs weren't out, when you were under leveled. Masters had a bit of a place, but even then not so much. But when GMs came out, Masters were pointless. Who the hell's playing Masters? Why play GM? Legends were even more pointless. Like, what's the point? Adept and Hero had a place because if you wanted to do your pinnacles, Adept and Hero were good, so they were good for that. They weren't a challenge Nightfall thing. They weren't for that. They were for your pinnacles and stuff, and for newer players to get into the game. So they had a place. I mean, you could maybe get rid of Adept and just kept Hero, which that's what they did. So now with Hero is decent. What they've done with Hero now, it's fine as it is. Legend's the problem, because if you compare Legend now compared to what the old Legend was, it's double the difficulty. Like I said, some Legend Nightfalls now are harder than the old GMs from last season and the season before. That's not right. Like there's something wrong there with that. So they've overscaled Legend. Legend shouldn't be having you underleveled. Legend should be allowed for you to either overlevel it or be at base of that. So if it's 1830, you should be allowed to do more damage when you get 1830 or whatever. Right? It shouldn't have you constantly 15 under. It's pointless to do it like that because when GMs come out, you're not playing Legend anyways. So Legend should be a Nightfall where you level up for your Pinnacles and stuff. Or for newer players, but I know Pinnacles they're doing away with it. So, but Legend's been overtuned. Like last week, who the hell was running Mars? No one, because it was ridiculous. Like this is meant to be a lower tier Nightfall, and it's like harder than GMs. Pointless. Masters have been upped with their difficulty. I feel as though they're probably slightly overtuned as well, honestly. Like being 20 under and all this, like they're basically GM level. It's not like you're getting to GM level there at that point. They're as hard as a GM nearly on the Masters. So I also think they've been overtuned, Masters. And the whole weekly rotation of farming, attrition and all that stuff's like been in the game for so long. Why are we still in that mode of these weekly modifiers? We don't like them. And GMs don't have those weekly modifiers. So like what's the point? So Masters have been overtuned as well. So they need to, in my opinion, lower the level of, make it so that you're not underleveled on Legend, because Legends are kind of stupid at the minute. Right, they're far overtuned. Masters need to be scaled down a little bit, and GMs, we'll see how hard GMs are, but I honestly think the difficulty between a GM and a Master isn't going to be very different. They're going to feel very similar both. Masters and Legend, they feel very similar. I've done both the Solo Master and the Solo Legend. The only difference really is there's more champions on Master, so that is a bit of a difference. But other than that, it's just because of the weekly modifier. So the weekly modifier will determine how difficult the Nightfall is going to be, which is dumb. I don't want a weekly modifier to dictate that. I want the strike to dictate that. That is a problem. So get rid of weekly modifiers, it's dumb. I want some more structure, you know, and just see where it goes with that. But we'll see what GMs are like this season. Obviously I will play them, but anyways, that's that section with the Tormentor. You can see how slow it is because of how tanky he is. Make sure you pick up all ammo. There's a brick that I wanted to pick up, but the portal has pulled me, which is a shame, but it's okay, it doesn't matter too much. So these next sections are just going to be busy work until you get to the next set of champions and stuff. So, like with everything with Destiny, it'll show you bits and pieces of mechanics to what the main mechanic you're going to use at the final boss. So this is the Unstoppables. There's two Unstoppables here. On Master, there's more Unstoppables than this. This is where I have the problem of trying to stun. Like, so obviously I haven't got a scout rifle on or anything to stun the champ with a weapon, but obviously I've got Suspend. Suspend is meant to stun Unstoppables. I'll deal with the Taken Centurions first because they keep firing the void orbs at me. Right, well, so we'll isolate the champion so that there's no other ads bothering me. We just got our shackle back just about now. The champion's moving about a little bit, but you'll see here. So I'll do my Suspend. It might be because of my distance, the range, I don't know. It should be stunning. See, look, on the left hand side there is no text to say I've stunned the champ. So this is the problem, and I done a Solo Master and the same thing happened. I wasn't stunning the champion, and there's more champions there's more than two. I think there's 4, which means it's a nightmare. And I didn't even have Witherhoard on. I had a different setup on, so I was like, oh, this is just so slow. So I actually sort of come out of it and it's like, why is it not stunning? It's stunned this time. See, so it's just a little buggy, but Witherhoard will at least counter that. If it doesn't proc the stun, then at least I've got Witherhoard damage on. This section you've got to be careful of because the taken portal things are firing at your position while you're dealing with the Centurion. The Centurion just wants to hide from you while firing those void orbs. So just be careful of that little section. and try not to get hit by the portal like that. We have a super. I recommend actually using a super on this Unstoppable because he's on that little section, and obviously could easily knock you off. So deal with the Centurion and all the ads surrounding that Unstoppable. Then you want to go over there and use your super. One super will just about kill an Unstoppable roundabout. To be sure though, I'm going to get an initial stun here. The stun's working, that was good with Odd. Use a bit of the machine gun. Fixed odds is really good in this. It's got that range that I want from it as well. Like I say, you could use a linear in this. I could see a linear being okay. Like Cataclysmic obviously would be really good, but linears, I feel as though with linears, if you're not using Cataclysmic or Sleeper, then it's a waste. I'd rather put a machine gun on. Like Taipan, I've used Taipan, it's like, Taipan's not that good anymore. You know, like for solo play I'm on about. Sleeper's really good. Sleeper feels super strong. So anytime you want to use like a good linear and it's like you need precision damage, Sleeper's top notch. Obviously Cataclysmic is as well, but you really want Witherhoard on if you're gonna use Cataclysmic. If you're not, it's not that good. Honestly, it doesn't hit as hard as it did. But it is still good, obviously. Just, and it's gonna do probably more. Well, it will do more total damage than Sleeper. But Sleeper's ease of use and its initial shots, burst damage. You can't go wrong with Sleeper these days. That's what I've found. Xenophage would be a good pick as well in this because of the Solar Surge. So if you went maybe double primary Xenophage to get the ammo, because you're going to get more ammo. If you put on a fusion rifle, you would hit your... So if you put on Riptide, say Riptide Bow Sleeper, that would be good and all, but your ammo would suffer for Sleeper. Whereas if you use the double primary, you get more Sleeper ammo. So that would be the difference between the two. I know Riptide is really good on Unstoppables and stuff, but if I'd done a Sleeper run, I would just go double primary. And believe it or not, your run would probably be a similar time if you use Riptide, because you would suffer for ammo throughout the run, and you need the ammo at the boss fight, because if you're not using like a Witherhoard or the Monarch, you're gonna really struggle to DPS the boss unless you use some sort of bugged weapon like Fighting Lion on him. This is the Sparrow section, right? So the Sparrow section, I can see it's going to end people's runs, especially on GM mode. You will be one shot on GM. I'm pretty certain you're going to be one shot, because on this mode I get hit. Do I get a hit on this? Yeah, I do. Look at that. So I get a direct hit and I'm one shot. You are shadow touched, so you will not get health regen while you're doing this Sparrow section. What you need to realize is, this isn't a race. It's not like you're in Grasp of Avarice. You can take your time. There's no ads that do ranged damage. It's all thrall. So you can take it slow like this. So just calculate, can I go to the next section without being hit? That's all you need to do, and you won't die. It's not a problem. It will be on GM. If you get hit once, you'll be dead. Definitely. So you've got to account for that. My health has bugged out as well because of the shadow touched. So this is something that you're going to have to take into account. This is the same bug as in Shattered Throne. When you do the Shattered Throne the thrall way, and your health regen is not regenning, after you complete it, it still doesn't regen. The way to fix it is to actually get hit by an ad. The problem is I'm too low of HP to get sniped or something. I would end up dying. So I'm going to have to play very passive here until the health regen gets sorted. If you notice on the right hand side there's a cranium to pick up, which is the next mechanic. Just go ahead and pick it up. You can pick it. You can use it to destroy the taken orbs. So the taken orb things, you can shoot them from a range to detonate them. You don't actually have to go close to them to detonate them. And if enough of them explode, it'll kill you. So use the cranium, because craniums do massive damage in this, and I think that's what these strikes want you to do, to sort of use craniums on the boss and stuff. And it's kind of like a big save for damage, especially on phase 3 of the boss, because you'll have so many craniums sitting on the floor where you can basically use craniums to do DPS for you. So craniums are good, and also they give you so much super energy, because I think it's because of the intellect stat being tied to bullets, but because of the cranium, it's just it considers the rate of fire of the cranium to be huge, like super quick. You're just getting loads of super energy. You'll notice that from the Vex Strike Force public event thing. When you're using a cranium on the Minotaurs, it's giving you so much super. There's 2 snipers to this side here though. I didn't know how much damage they were going to do to me, but I should have just used the machine gun, honestly. Because I know that there's a overload round the corner, so I don't want to get hit by these snipers plus overload. Obviously the overload's only stasis. Well, stasis when he attacks you, but he'll do... well, no, when you do your first shot, he'll do the arc, but when he attacks you, it's just the stasis. So, talking about overloads, so when you throw a shackle on a champ, on an overload, you will not stun them. You will suspend them, but you won't get this. You won't get the overload damage. So you need to pair that with an overload weapon. On lower difficulties, you won't notice the difference, but like on a higher difficulty, Nightfall, it's like, yeah, all right, I can't just rely on suspend for overloads. You need to pair that with some sort of overload weapon. We've got overload bow, and we've got overload auto and SMG. So Osteo, Quicksilver Storm, La Monarch. Stuff like that, or a legendary bow like what I'm using, because obviously I'm using Witherhoard. Still, when you're solo and you're dealing with overload champs, you still need to rely on an overload weapon. Barrier is not important if you've got your build correct. You can infinitely stun barriers with the shackle nade. You can with an overload, obviously, but it's just going to be better that you have an overload weapon on. It's important, because overload champions obviously are notoriously the hardest champ to deal with. So these Vandals, they keep summoning their shields because of the mod. There's also a captain in middle. I'm playing obviously quite passively on this run, because as I said, I'm not super confident with it. Once I get my hours up with this Nightfall and actually do some runs, some TM runs and solo runs, I'll be more accustomed to it and everything. So obviously, you know, your first proper run of it is going to be a longer run in general, but it is a long run. It'll be a long GM. I suspect solo GMs of this run will be up to an hour almost. Some people will be doing it quicker than that, but it'll be quite long. But honestly, the gap between Legend and GM, I'm interested to see what that'll be like, because it won't be that big. Depends on what strike it is, but it is interesting that they've hashed Arms Dealer and Lake of Shadows. Those are going to be a very interesting GM to me. They're going to actually be fun, because they've reworked those 2 strikes, and I've played them and I've realised on how good of a GM they're going to be. Right? They're going to be more challenging than what they've ever been. Are they going to be as hard as this one or Mars? No, they're going to be nowhere near that, but they're going to still be interesting and fun to run. The Mars one, I'm not looking forward to it at all. It's terrible. It's such a bad... Well, it's not even designed to be a strike, is it? They need to get Battlegrounds out of Nightfalls. They have no place in this. They are just a souped up version of Battlegrounds, and we've been playing Battlegrounds all last year. Why do I want to play it this year? I don't want to play it. Why have they got it? It's a bad idea. It's something, again, they should have done a poll on that. You know, they do these polls on votes for cosmetics. They should have done a poll on that and said, do you want Battlegrounds in the Nightfall playlist? And I bet you everybody would have said no. And they would have answered the question without ruining an entire year of GMs, because that's what we're going to be putting up with this year, is Battleground GMs. Don't want to do it. I just want proper strikes. They have no rhythm. They don't even feel like a Nightfall. They don't. They're actually, you know, it's just kind of weird. And then they've added the Mars, the first one. I mean, I have no problem with it. I'll still have a go at soloing it. But I'm just saying, it's just like a little bit... Whereas this one, obviously, it's an entirely new strike. I like it. It's decent. It's longer than your average strike. I understand that, but still good. So we've got our first mechanic of with the cranium plus the rifts. So the whole idea is that you pick up a cranium and then you shoot it at the rifts to close them, and that progresses the strike. Before you do that though, because you could actually progress the strike too quick and have an overload still alive, make sure you kill the overload before you start picking up any craniums. You don't want to overwhelm yourself, and you will end up overwhelming yourself because there's ogres spawn, taken ogres, and a lot of thralls spawn on phase 2 of this cleanse the taken rift section. So deal with all adds first, make sure all adds are taken out, then pick up one of the craniums. 1 to 2 craniums will do all the rifts. You get more craniums than what you'd ever need on this section. Obviously don't get hit by the rifts. The ones in middle are more dangerous because when you maybe go and picking up ammo, and like I say, on a high difficulty they may one shot, so you need to learn to make sure that you're not standing where they hit. I think it's 50% and then the ogres spawn. Now if you want to use a super and you're frightened that you're going to die or get knocked off, use it. But if you don't use it and you get past the taken ogre section without using it, that's actually a good thing, because you want to use your super when you get to the final boss. If you have a super for that phase, it makes it so much better, because phase 1 of the first boss fight, phase 1, is quite difficult because of the adds that spawn. If you have a super for phase 1 of the boss fight, that's huge. And you can survive this section, seriously, just suspend the ogres, they're not going to push you too much. The main thing is dealing with all the thrall first, then you can suspend the ogres in middle and then just kill them with Witherhoard and machine gun. But as I said, if you do end up nearly dying, pop a super to stay alive. And you could weigh out a super for phase 1, but obviously that would be quite cheap. So yeah, try and save super if you can, is the message. Once everything's killed, pick up a cranium again. And then deal with the rest of the rifts. A top tip is, you can actually take a cranium to the boss fight, because you can see there's like 3 craniums in total. So you don't need that much craniums. So we'll take out all the rifts. And then pick up one of the craniums. Try and drop this one and pick up the other one. Because, like I say, you can actually do good ag clear with the craniums as well. Or good boss damage. But obviously we're going to use... Well, we're going to use a mixture of the two, but we're going to use our Roman super to take care of the adds on phase 1. So there is no infinite adds, which is a good thing for the boss. The boss is obviously a taken Hydra. The boss has numerous attacks against you, which I'll explain all the AI patterns of the boss, of each phase, and what to watch out for, etc. So at the start of every phase, that is the most threatening section, because you are dealing with the boss and the adds. But on phase 1 there's a bunch of Centurions that spawn. We know that Centurions spawn void orbs, right? But also does the boss. The boss spawns. So that means you can have up to 6, 7 void orbs attacking you. So you want to get a suspending and you want to get a super going. You will be able to tank so much, but not everything. Try and kill as many taken Centurions and Phalanxes as you can until it's time to get out, right? Make sure you got at least 20% super to get out, because you're going to get the tankiness of a Roman super. But don't spend your entire super and then be sitting in the middle of the battlefield, because then you'll instantly die, won't you? At this point, you need to do map rotation. As far as I'm aware, there's no cheeses in terms of standing somewhere, but I haven't explored this area to find out. I will be doing that, because I'm interested to see if there's any cool exploits that there is, because you know I love a good exploit. I don't like it where there's stupid cheeses where where you can't die and stuff, but I like a good exploit where you can sit on the edge of a platform or on top of a roof and stuff like that. I do like a cheese like that, because then people can solo it and I can make a video about it. But as far as I'm aware right now, you need to do a map rotation because, as I said, the boss will continually do void orbs that chase you. So you can't stand. You need to do map rotation. The void orbs aren't really quick either, so you can outrun them pretty easily. I'm not sure on on Grandmaster if the orbs are going to be quicker. Probably not, unless there's some sort of modifier to buff the void orbs. So the void orbs aren't too threatening. You just need to keep on your feet, keep running around. Take all adds. Adds are your worry right now. Once all adds are dealt with, you can then start to do boss DPS. Don't start to do boss DPS until that. Then this is where Witherhoard comes in, you see, because Witherhoard will bypass the taken shield, the Hydra's shield, obviously, and it'll just stick them. So, I think the two best weapons for this fight, well, three, will be Fighting Lion, because it's bugged, unless they've fixed it, I don't know. Le Monarch, because if you do Le Monarch damage to the shield, it'll poison the Hydra. It's just the same boss, basically, as the Glassware boss. Just a little weaker, not as much health, maybe. It's the same boss, essentially. So, this is kind of like Glassware. In a sense, for the boss at least. But yeah, you can just keep doing damage. Do shackle the boss, because even though it's not going to shackle the boss in a traditional sense, it's still going to help you to do a bit more damage. So keep doing that every now and then. Don't waste too much Witherhoard, right? You know, but just keep doing your damage basically. But you want to do enough damage so that you get your super for phase 2. This strategy is foolproof, you see. So I've supered phase 1. If I didn't, you would have had so many Centurions chasing you, which will increase the risk of dying. On phase 2 is easier than phase 1. I believe phase 1 to probably be the hardest, if you didn't have a super, but that's why we use a super to deal with that. Phase 3 isn't a problem. Honestly, phase 2 and 3, not a problem. On Master though, there are champs here, so it's a little different. There are champs on Master, so it will change it a little bit. So we use a super here, Roman super, to deal with one side, because now there's these platforms that spawn in. There's 4 Quantum Minotaurs, but if you can deal with one side, that frees up one side of the map to a certain extent, so that you can actually deal with, get a cranium, and then start shooting these blights. You just need to kill the blights. One cranium won't do the lot, but it'll do more than half. So don't waste too much cranium energy, because you can use that on adds, you can use it on the boss for damage. Also notice that the boss teleports to the back of the map. Rather than being at the front, he's at the back now. So don't stand at the back of the map, obviously. The boss will focus on the Vex, so try to leave some of the Vex up if you can, because once you do deal with all the Vex, the boss then focuses his attention on you. I used the cranium to take out the other 2 Minotaurs, because you don't want to break all the blights if there's still adds up. The same thing, you need to isolate. So you need to take care of all of these adds, because if you don't do that, say I did shoot all the blights and there's still Vex up, they're still taking Thrall, you're gonna have a bunch of snipers spawn in while dealing with all the taking Thrall. You will wipe because of that without invis, probably. So this is where you need to be ready for phase 2. Well, actual phase 2 coming up. And if you've got a super, even better. I did use my super on that Minotaur. I probably didn't need to. I probably should have saved. That was probably not the right play to do that. But we're going to use a bit of cranium on some of the adds as well. So we're going to take down the last blight. I've nearly got my super. I could have waited it out a little bit. But I'm going to do a bit of cranium damage to the boss to get our super. The snipers are going to spawn in. So it's not Centurions, even though it might look that way. It isn't. It's just a bunch of snipers, but obviously this is a quite dangerous phase. So you want to use a super here, try and take out as many snipers as possible. You might not get them all, but get most of them. And use your melee. Try not to use your melee too much. You don't need to use it, but use it as a movement tool. So if you've made the wrong choice of where you need to go because the orbs are chasing you, you can quickly melee out of the way of the orbs and it'll avoid you from dying. Because if all orbs hit you at once, you will definitely die from that, no matter what difficulty. So just make sure that you're constantly rotating. That's what's so good about using Witherhoard in this fight, or the Monarch, because you can hit the boss and then run, and he does that damage over time, sort of thing. So it gives you a good window to do damage. That's what makes this run so long. You can't just pitch up. I mean, you could with a Well of Radiance. I suspect you could probably out-tank a lot of this outgoing damage. But obviously I'm using a Strand build. Now, I could have used something else. You know, I could have used a Void Titan and maybe been a bit more effective. Or even Solar, because Solar Titan's got actually been buffed since the Fire Sprite set up. And there's a Firebolt set up and all this stuff going on. But I'll come to that later on throughout the season. I will switch off Strand and have a look at Solar and see what that's about, because I'm sort of excited to play that. I haven't even played it once, but I know there is a build for it. There's some artifact mods linked to it which I have unlocked, just haven't got round to doing it. So I will explore that. Solar Titan is still really good, especially with Splendor. Same thing again though, for Phase 3 we're going to have a super for that as well, which on Phase 3 there's Centurions. I think they're Centurions. No, I think they're orange bar phalanxes. I'm not sure, I can't mind at this point. I think they're orange bar phalanxes, or there might be a Centurion involved. But those don't spawn right away as well. Obviously the boss will be shielded after you get to a third. And there's that time of getting the craniums and stuff like that. But the key is to not break all the rifts until you have super for Phase 3, and then you can use your super. Obviously if I was on Night Stalker, the optimization wouldn't be needed as much, because I could go invis at any point and survive. Whereas on a Titan, I haven't got that health regen per se on this setup, so it hasn't got that part of it, but it's got the suspend shackle where you can suspend ads, so it's got some support, but it hasn't got the health regen that other classes possess, like Solar Titan and stuff. So it might, for Titan mains, they might still gravitate towards Solar or Void as opposed to using Strand in GM content. But you'll still be able to do GMs with Strand, definitely. You'll definitely still be able to do it. You'll just have to pay attention more to your HP. It'll be as simple as that. You'll have to adjust your playstyle if you want to make Strand work. So the Centurions or the Phalanxes haven't spawned yet because I haven't dealt with all the rifts. So once you've dealt with one side of Minotaurs, whichever side that is, doesn't matter. Start dealing with some of the rifts, because that's clustering the map up a bit at the minute. Take all of them out until the last one. Right, then prep the rest of the room. Kill all the Minotaurs, all the rest of the ads, because you don't want any of that stuff up for Phase 3. Just 2 Minotaurs left, I think. There's a lot of red on the radar, I don't know why, because I think there is one major above me, but some ads hiding, I guess. Deal with this final Minotaur, and then now we can go for a cranium, because we've got super. The ads spawn as well at the front of the map. It was actually good me keeping up the Minotaur as well, because if you notice, the Hydra didn't focus me at all. Right, so it was actually good while I'm shooting, you know, leaving a Minotaur up is really effective, because now, if you notice, the boss is on me. The boss's attacks I've actually not discussed too much, have I? Well, he's got 3 different attacks. He's got the Taken Walls, he has the Solar Blast damage, and the Void Orbs. He goes through a cycle of all 3. but the taken walls keep coming at you. Every now and then he'll do the void, but in between the taken walls and the void he'll do those solar blasts, which actually do quite a bit of damage. Concussive dampener will protect against that actually, and it will protect against the taken walls, but I don't have concussive on because the cost of that mod has went up. It went up to 3. It used to be 1. I don't. Why have they done that? It should be just 1. I thought they want to incentivize build crafting. They really want to incentivize build crafting. Start making mods cheaper then. They have done in general, and there are some artifact mods that allow you to do that. I don't mind that, but why not just make that intrinsic then? Like, so you can pick up a mod that's all grey mods cost 1 as opposed to 3. Why not just have it intrinsically have 1 then? Because then I've got to make a decision on the artifact which one I want, and then I can see myself resetting it multiple times, and other people will as well. So in one hand they buffed the artifact, and in another hand they haven't, because yes, they're active at all times, but there's so many good mods this season I might want to change it up. Like if I don't have the Rain of Fire one and I need to unlock it, I'm gonna have to reset my artifact. It's gonna be annoying. So I don't know why we went back to resetting artifacts for Glimmer. I thought we'd come away from that, and now we're back to... It's like 1 step forward, 2 step back with them at times. So you can see now, once ads are taken care of, which the server done a fantastic job of doing that, you can just DPS the boss. Now, you don't always have to run away from the orbs. The machine gun's good for that. Just take down the orbs, and then you can just strafe left and right, do Witherhoard, machine gun, ammo, use the cranium if you want, but you can see the boss isn't really tanky, and I don't suspect the boss to be tanky on GM mode either. They might sort the boss out, but before then I don't know if they have or they haven't. I haven't been following the news, but obviously I think the boss is considered as a red bar as well as a boss, which is weird coding. But yeah, you can see the boss's health isn't tanky. It's the fact of getting a good weapon to do damage. Like I said, Witherhoard, Le Monarch, Osteo, things like that would be good to damage the boss. But that was the solo for this. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.